Welcome back to another episode of Show Up with Sarah, and I am really happy to bring you someone that I have known for two years now. I want to say since 2020, right? And she's awesome. Please welcome Leslie Herod. How are you doing?
Hey, it's good to be here with you. Yes, it's been about 2 years thanks to Instagram, and I'm glad to be here.
The reason why I am happy that you are here is because you are someone that I follow. I love what you're doing, and you are probably my most impressive, if I may say, guest on here because you are a state rep. And okay. I want to know specifically. I've perused all your stuff. I follow everything that you do. What made you decide I am going to represent the great state of Colorado?
Wow, that's a great question. First of all, you're the most impressive, to be clear. We could get into all of your amazing, inspirational stuff later. But what I would say is that I got into running for office early on when I was younger, really student government at CU Boulder. I went to school up there. And I realized that the campus wasn't welcoming or inclusive for people who look like me, people who look like you, students of color, first generation students, feminists. Like it wasn't very welcoming, and which was shocking to me. I didn't know, because on the brochures, right, there were a lot of people of color. Like there was always someone smiling on the brochures. And so as a young person, I decided to run for office. Didn't realize that we had the largest student government in the nation. And when I became president, I had run a $36 million budget with complete student fee autonomy with a group of amazing friends who are my friends to this day. And in that, I learned the impact that public policy alongside of, being elected, the impact you can have on communities. We were able to create entire new departments. We were able to put pressure on the administration. And one of the things that we did was became the first public institution to allow domestic partner benefits for same-sex couples.
Oh, wow.
And to show that Colorado, with the University of Colorado being one of Colorado's largest employers, that if you give rights to people, especially to same-sex partners, the sky won't fall. The world won't be over. Things won't end, In fact, you will attract more employees, right? And a more healthier work environment. And that really started my work. And really, I think was one of the catalysts for young people getting involved in the LGBTQ movement right here in Colorado. And so I really took that lesson. And as soon as I graduated, I started an organization called New Era Colorado to get young people out and voting. I started working at the Capitol as a staffer, and the rest is history.
Here you are. So just to give listeners more background, I have all your information because I'm also really, really bad at quoting things. So I'm like, she passed that one act, with the. And then she also did, and people were like, what, can you be more specific? So I'm going to read some things because I want people to know exactly who we're talking about. Leslie has I'm going to read it as clearly as it is, boldly put forward 37 bills to sent to the governor's desk, like law enforcement accountability, thank you, maternal health care accessibility, increased protections for pregnant people. One of my personal favorites, the Crown Act, is something that you have pushed forward. You have expanded access to HIV medications, eliminate the gay and trans panic defense. Another thing is 13,000 people per year who won't stay in jail because they can't pay the bill. You have worked on that, and you have sent bills to the governor's desk. You are busy. And it's like every single time that I look at your Instagram, I just see you on the floor doing something, getting something passed, pushing something forward, which is very nice given the current climate where it feels as if every single right, every single belief, every single thing that just should be is used as a shuttlecock between Democrats and Republicans. and rights that should be being worked on is something that feels like it's being held hostage these days, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so it's really awesome to look at your page and be like, wow, she's there. Not like I don't think that our representatives show up at work, right? But it's really cool to just see you being like, hey, this is a thing that needs to get done and we're going to work on it and we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
When you, because obviously you're in that space much more intimately than I am, how hard is it to truly remain focused on, like, what are we doing today? How do I show up today? How am I present for my constituents and my state today, as opposed to worrying about the tomorrow, which it seems, I would say a lot of I guess civilians, that's what it seems like politics is, people worrying
Yeah.
about their positioning for tomorrow.
And that's real, because uh, I mean, I don't worry too much about people being positioned for tomorrow, because I think that if you knew your job was going to end in a year, you'd be looking for a new job too, right?
Yeah.
But I just never ran my career on what I'm going to do next, because I feel like that for me, my communities, be it the Black community, LGBTQ community, you know, whomever, needs action now and for today, you know? And so I've really focused on that. You know, what can we fix right now? Where can I find consensus? Where can I build bipartisan support? And a lot of those bills that you mentioned initially would have seemed controversial, but had both Democrats and Republicans on board. And it's because of those conversations and that consensus building that I brought up. But I think what people don't realize is that there's so much power in local elections, in local government, at the state level or at the city and municipal level. You can make so much change. So in my career since 2016 being elected, I've passed over 150 bills. You named a lot of them that some I've actually a little bit forgot about, but I'm really proud of, you know, because it's made a difference here in Colorado. I would not have been as successful at the federal level. I don't believe it that. Simply because the federal level is intent on keeping the status quo. And that they're doing quite well at that. And as much as some of my friends like Congressman Neguse or Congressman Crow or DeGette are doing great work out there, they're not able to get bills passed the House, through the House and the Senate. They're not able to build those relationships. Their proximity to each other is further. And so their understanding for commonality is harder to get to, right? And so locally, I know my colleagues. I could go to the next district and have a conversation with them. I know what South Denver is like, you know, but I also can go to Uray, you know, I can go to Rangeley, I can go to Rifle and have these conversations with my colleagues and be united in something, right? You might not vote for all of my bills, but how do you feel about X? You know, what about getting young people access to education through college kickstarter accounts? What about financial literacy? You know, what about incarceration that's costing your district billions of dollars? You know, what about that? And as soon as we find those common grounds, we're able to use the 120 days that we're in session to really run and move those bills forward together. But I will add that the political climate has become so toxic that the federal toxicity is definitely reaching its arm into local and state governments as well. And I think as we think about who we're going to elect and who we're going to support, we have to watch out for that. You know, you might have great policies, but are you a bridge builder or are you a divider? You know, how do you respond when people are attacking you? I mean, I get attacked every day, and don't get me wrong, sometimes I get pretty pissed off. But I try not to alienate people in my response, you know, because I need them. You might not agree with me today, but I need you to agree with me tomorrow. You know what I mean? And so, so I think that's important, is to think about that and to be involved at the state and local level, because that's where we can make change. But also run, you know, if you want to be that consensus builder, that bridge builder, run, have these really tough conversations, because people don't want to do it. And so we're attracting much less, I won't say qualified, because that's not the word. You don't have to be qualified to run for office, just be like overage, you know? But I think we're electing more toxic people, right? I think we're electing people who want to be in for the gamesmanship or the mess or the photo op, and less folks who are in it for the work and for the public service. And so folks are out there thinking like, you know what, I really just want to make a change in my own backyard or where my kid goes to school, my community. Think about what those elected offices are that oversee that area and consider running. Because if you are running because you want to make a real difference in your community, then you are qualified and you're running for the right reasons. Bonus points if you're a woman, a person of color, or queer.
Yeah. I was thinking while you were talking, like I was taking you in, but I was also thinking about it. And I am curious if you see it or if it's just kind of the general sense that I get where I feel like more people are getting more involved, but at the same time, it feels as if so many people are getting so exhausted by all the divisiveness that, like, I mean, I know me personally, I'm like, I want to be that person that's like in things and doing everything, but I also kind of like just want to take a break. Like if I could go to some island and just not deal with racism and misogyny and politics and everything, like that would be great for like 2 years. I would do it.
Absolutely.
And so and it's funny, and I like to joke about this. I was joking with a friend that I'm originally from Pittsburgh, and my parents still live there, and my mom's like, oh, if you move back to Pittsburgh as like a young Black woman, you would clean up these streets. And I'm like, what am I, Batman? Like, what am I doing? Like, and she's like, you would just, I know you care about the homeless situation, and you would just kill it here. We need more people like you. And like, maybe one day you're just mayor. And I'm like, you really planned it out there for me. Right.
I love it.
But it is this idea that like, that you at some point you have to stop complaining about the type of people who are being elected, and then realize that if you don't want those people elected, then more people have to run, and stop, like you could just be that person that does it. And so this brings me to the question though of, are you seeing, like, when you do talk to people and you're like, you like run, like be a part of it, like get into it, and it's not like it has to lead to being president, you can be at the local level, but like do you see that level of exhaustion or kind of like wanting to tap out more or less?
No, you're right. I mean, I see it a lot, and I feel like it is more. And I get it, like I cannot bear to see, the news of another school being, targeted and shot up. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. And I should have done a trigger warning on that. And just the racism, the division, we just found out about the Pride that was being targeted by the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
And that some of them were from Colorado. It's like we could be in the grocery stores with these people.
Yes.
And we know it, we feel it, and it makes us just want to go inward and just have our safe group and not deal with it. And I get it. I'm the same way. I get that. But also we need you. We need you in the game. We need your voices. We need to fight through that apathy, because we are only going, in my opinion, in the wrong direction. Yeah. Because they are not tired. The people who are full of hate, the people who are full of, wanting to divide us, the Twitter trolls, God, the Twitter trolls, they are not tired,
Yeah.
And so we have to match that with enthusiasm, with hope, with love, but also with action, And when I'm out there doing the legislative work, it's because I have people behind me who I know will support my efforts and won't say, I'm going to take your seat because you ran a bill that was gun control, And so I need that too. And my colleagues need that pressure. And so when my colleagues know that there's like a Sarah out there who is saying, you know what, it's time for you to act. I've got your back. Here's what I want you to do. What do you want to do? But I've got your back on this. Let's move together, and I'll be loud and cheerleading for it, but you got to do your part. And it's like a give and take, all with the goal of achieving a better community for everybody. We win. But if we sit at home, or if we stay quiet, or if we wait for it to get closer to us, we lose, right? And I think we've seen this and heard this literally throughout time. Right? Where we had Dr. King saying, take action, where we had folks who were in the Holocaust saying, take action, or I waited too long and they came for me, and no one was there to speak for me. And it's like, we've got to step up. I'm really actually honored to be a part of a group that's bringing out Nikki Giovanni this week. And for me, thinking about her work and kind of reminding myself of college Leslie, who was like quoting Nikki Giovanni every second about liberation. It's like, we are not actually truly free, right? And so we all fight for each other until we're all free. And that takes work. We are citizens in this world and in our communities. And that's an honor. And I think in our time that we're here on this earth, we should find a way to give back. I'm not saying you have to run for president. I'm not saying that you have to do some huge thing, but I am saying that it starts with doing something. And just as folks have had my back, I will have theirs.
I mean, honestly, I feel like you should start doing some type of campaign or something, because like that alone, I was just like, yes, you know what, I do need to get more action. And it's funny because like you literally just touched on, I just had an experience on Twitter where, you know, some people made comments about the LA Pride and the performances that were taking place there, and some of the clothing of choice. I'm sure that you probably know what I'm talking about. And someone's comment was, if that community wants us to accept their bids for marriage, then they really can't put this out there. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's literally not, that's not how that works. Like, no one needs your acceptance. And they're like, well, we're the ones that pass like the laws and stuff, which I was like, this is like, I'm sorry, what? And then then someone else made a comment about something, and I was like, that literally doesn't make sense. Like, I can't even fathom how this is like what you're thinking, you know. And I got quiet because I was like, oh, I don't have the energy for this. Like, but exactly what you said, people who are kind of driven by intolerance and hate and closed-mindedness do have more energy, because ultimately they're taking in less. They're taking in less understanding, empathy, trying to understand, right? And people who do are more open. I feel like this has been a really kind of tough time, because it's like you're being bombarded by all the things that are happening constantly all the time to other people. And so, yeah, like, it's like you even just saying that made me reflect on, like, I shouldn't have gone quiet, because I was just like, these people are such idiots. Like, I don't have the energy to give this, but absolutely, like, it's my job to show up for that. And, you know, I will say, so like I said, I'm from Pittsburgh, went to school outside of DC and lived in that area for 11 years, and then came here. And I've been here for 7 years now. And I always tell people, I'm like, you know, Denver is a good spot. It's the most progressive place that I've lived, and people are really nice. I'm like, but it is kind of funny because I have been approached more here than ever with people who are like, hey, I'm an ally, just so you know. And I'm like, okay. Okay. Like, and I always try to like tell people, I'm like, you know, like, thank you. You don't necessarily have to call yourself that. All you have to do is be a decent human person. And when you see something, always say something. That you have so much power in that. And it kind of feels like that's what I'm receiving from you. Like, this idea that if I have your back, even when you're not there, I'm doing something. I'm helping you. I'm helping the community. The equivalent of if a young white woman sees someone being mistreated and they speak up, that's showing up for it. I would say one of the experiences that I've had that kind of really, I don't know, like, I won't say shocked me. And I'm curious on your opinion on this, but, you know, I live on South Broadway, as you know, and there are a number of unhoused people here, and I've befriended a number of them. One in particular, he's a very small little dude. He's very kind. He's very harmless. And I just try to watch out for him because he's so small, and he's like, sometimes people pick on him. And one time he went to get up and he couldn't quite get up. So I was like, oh, let me help you. And I grabbed his shoulder, his elbow and his hand, and I helped him up. And this guy that was walking past, he was like, wow, that's so kind of you. And I was like, for helping someone up, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird because Denver is this progressive area, but then I do see how some people treat the unhoused here, and I've had to get off of the Nextdoor app because the conversations about the unhoused community there is just overwhelming. So like obviously there's this issue where people shouldn't have to deal with people right outside of their home camped out or being loud or doing drugs or anything like that. But then at the same time, it kind of seems like the situation in the city is that there's just not enough space to, and so people are kind of being moved around, or people aren't aware that when you want a city to grow, these are some things that come with it. When it comes to like that topic, I know it's becoming more such a hot topic, such a hot button in Denver. Do you see a way forward regarding the unhoused community here?
I do. And first, I want to say for the first part of what you said, because I think it's really important, that the times you don't speak up, right? As a, speak for myself now, a Black queer woman, there are times that I don't have the energy to put myself in the way of that trauma, you know? So there's sometimes that I don't speak up either. And you cannot beat yourself up over it. I just invite others who are not people of color, not queer, not disabled, to speak up instead, you know, because we need more folks who look less like me, right, to do that, to speak up, because sometimes we are just too tired to do so because we've done it 5 other times that day, you know. And so there are times, and sometimes we can come off as an angry Black woman. If we do, you know. So there are times when we have to protect ourselves and not say things. That doesn't mean that we're silenced, but it means that we are actively taking care of ourselves first, and that's okay. And there's no shame in that. And as we think back on the situations when we all have had to be silent to take care of ourselves, I think we just need to use those as incidences and as examples of times when we need help. Right. Where I need to be able to say to the person standing next to me, will you take care of this? You know, will you step up? Because I don't have the capacity today. And that's hard to do when those people have consistently shown you that that's not their face. You know what I mean? They're not going to do that. But sometimes we got to put faith in other folks and hope that we can make progress too. Not all the times, but sometimes, because we're not whole. We cannot fight the fight. So I want to say that. When it comes to the unhoused population, you know, we've talked about apathy in politics. I think for Denver right now, we have become very apathetic to the plight of those who are unhoused, those who are suffering from substance misuse. And what folks don't realize is, I believe I saw something in Healthier Colorado. Don't quote me. Look at their page, but it's like 3 in Colorado Health Foundation, 3 in 10 Coloradans feel like they are housing unstable, which means they might lose their mortgage, their rent, or their house or their apartment within 6 months. So the people who are going into homelessness are families. They're young. They're not what you typically think of. And the number is booming. It is getting so large so quickly that we have to do something to stem the tide. Dealing with the apathy is because people are tired. People are frustrated. We weren't like this always in Denver. We weren't always as much like, get rid of them, just get rid of them. But because of, I think, lack of action, and I will take this on the political side, lack of political will to take true action, courageous action that could cost people their legislative careers, at the municipal level, especially, we're seeing the impacts. Right? We're seeing the impacts of that. And so for me, it's really important that we push all of our candidates who are running now, including myself. What are you going to do around this unhoused population? What are you doing around substance misuse? How are we going to stem the tide of people who are completely housing unstable? You know, rents are going up astronomically. No wonder people are worried, like, because they're like, my lease is up in a month and they might raise my rent $500 and I can't afford that, you know, and that is really happening. And so we have to do more work there. But I'm feeling that. But I think that person who saw you help someone up is going to help someone up the next time. And that little action makes such a difference,
Yeah.
such a difference. And the fact that they even registered it and said something like, wow, they might not do the exact same thing, but they'll do something,
Yeah.
that matters. Those small acts of kindness really do matter. Looking someone in the eye matters. Just you gotta understand your own biases, right? Our own biases, our own frustration, and say, you know what? They deserve to be here just as much as I do. They just fell through the wrong cracks, and no one is offering to lift them up. No one's
Yes.
offering them that help. And so we've got to do more to get it to them.
I always tell people that you literally never know anybody's story. So it's not on you to judge why they are there or how they got there or whatever. And the other side of it is I always try to remind my friends and pretty much anybody that will listen, I'm like, the truth is that a lot of us, the worst case scenario won't happen. If I got evicted, one of my parents would be like, yeah, obviously come live with me. And probably two or three of my friends here in Denver would be like, just move in with me until you figure it out. And I'm like, I will never have to live on a street. And I'm like, but we also forget, I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. Every month is like, okay, what are we doing? Are we building? Where are we going? Or how are we financially? And I'm like, I also have a history I live with mental illness, right? I have major depressive disorder, anxiety, ADHD. And so I tell people, if you mess up, if I couldn't get access to medication, or if I became so financially unhealthy and stressed out, I was like, I know what that will do to me mentally. And if I'm not sleeping, if I'm not functioning, if I'm spiraling, like I can't do my work. Right. And then we all know the state of healthcare in this country. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to a hospital because I'm not paying for that, and I'm like, and then if I lost my home and you give me 1 month of improper sleep, improper nutrition, improper hygiene, I would be concerned about how long it would take me to get away from that. And I'm like, and
no
that's
hope.
Yes.
Add on no hope, right?
Yes.
Like,
and so, and like, I've talked to some, like my one buddy, I'm like, hey, were you drinking today? And he's like, yeah, well, just a little, blah, blah. And we'll talk. And I'll be like, hey, Ron, you really have to like, cause your health, like we're the last time you went to the hospital. And I'm like, you gotta stop drinking. And he is just flat up and like, Sarah, I sleep on a sidewalk. I'm like, that's such a valid point. Like, I know people who get dead drunk for literally no reason because like something good happened. I'm like, so that's fair, and I'm going to have to give you, when we get off the call, I'm going to have to give you my plans because I have this vision for this building that will take place, kind of similar to like the Rose Andom Center, where it's like a one-stop shop for things. I want this thing to take place because I'm like, something has to get done, right? But no, I love that. I love what you're saying because it is true. It's my fear, I think, for Denver, and not just Denver, for the nation, is that we're going to have more people who are added to that space. And the minute that someone goes into that space, we lose empathy for them. And we keep creating this divide of like, well, you should have made better decisions, even though people are falling off that cliff every single day. It's like we're erasing the understanding that these are people who, like, the majority of people out there don't want to be out there. Right. So yeah, I love.
We're all like one step away, right? Like, I mean, so many of us are one step away, and by the grace of God, like we are still here, right? But we have our struggles, and that's why, I said I would mention this before, but that's why you're such an inspiration to so many, and including myself, is because you're honest about those struggles, and it took you a while to get there. I know, I'm assuming, I'm sure of it, but that honesty and that empathy and that compassion makes you able to give back so much more than you even realize into the world, because you are still struggling through this, right? And you are talking about your challenges, and knowing that that has been medicine for you, I think is important for all of us, because you, me, my family, one step away. My sister has lived on the streets. My sister has struggled
Mm.
with substance misuse. My sister has been in and out of the criminal justice system. My sister has lived with absolutely no hope and had no will to continue. And I'm glad that she did, you know, because now she is clean, she is sober, she is working, she is housed. And now we are working to ensure that my nieces and nephews are on the same path, you know, but it's work, and trauma is real, and we all have it. And we're all, you know, again, so close to being that person that we are disregarding or throwing away.
Yes.
And that should never happen. That is someone's mom, brother, cousin, you know, child. And so we've got to remember that. We've got to remember that.
It really is so crazy to me too that people don't have empathy for it, when I'm like, we all understand the state of healthcare. Like, it takes one time, like, and it's nothing that you could do. You could just be, you step off the curb and something happens, and then now you're $100,000 in debt, you know, and that's real, you know, like, so, okay, not to, well, yes, very much to switch gears, but I really loved that I don't know if you can call it an initiative, but you getting involved in bringing women of color, women of the queer community into nature.
Oh yeah.
I like when the first time I saw it, I was like, what's this chick doing? And then I really appreciated that you
Thank you.
Like, you know, like, and I mean, it's funny because I am very much like not a nature person. I went car camping with my animals last year, and I was just like this is the closest to being on the ground I plan on being, like in my car. Like, what made you decide that, you know what, like this is a thing I'm going to start showing up for?
Well, that's a great question. So, you know, I've actually always loved the outdoors. My family they're big fishers and campers. But I think people assume that folks that look like me aren't out there. And if we are, a lot of times there's a lot of discrimination. You know, when I started reading about what happened with Outdoor Afro, where they were told, you know, where there's a group of Black women were told to get off the hiking trail because they were disturbing. I mean, you know, it's just like craziness.
Yeah.
I was like, we have to have awareness and visibility in all spaces. And that includes in the outdoor space. As Coloradans, it's kind of how we identify, you know, like if there's a Colorado who's not outdoorsy, I'll ask you what city you're from, Philly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's what, you know, I said, well, let's do more. And as I decided to move over to the Joint Budget Committee and get involved in where Colorado was spending its money, we have so much revenue going into outdoors and into conservation. I'm not a conservationist, but I will say that it's because the space has seemed unwelcoming for people of color and queer folks. And so why is that? Why don't we have, why can't I go to, you know, a conservationist and it be a woman of color, you know? Why can't I go to environmentalist and be a woman of color? Because that's just, we haven't been grown and taught that this is what we can be. And so my goal was to get more people into the outdoors, to understand that being connected with nature can help our mental health. And recreation is something that we all need, but I'll be honest, it was also a bit selfish in the way that I needed to reconnect with nature too. And when I integrate it with my work, I am holding myself more accountable to that. And so I created the Outdoor Equity Fund to fund more organizations that were working with people of color, veterans, queer folks, young people, to get them into the outdoors, to have a connection to the outdoors, to pay for a lot of the fees and, you know, that comes along with wanting to go camping or buying a park pass and things like that, and to bring visibility and awareness. And in that, I found a community of amazing, beautiful people of all shapes, sizes, and colors who were doing that work, you know, and it's fun. And I'm able to be and experience the outdoors more, and also hold myself more accountable to my health and my well-being.
You're absolutely right, because it's the one lesson I have learned becoming an adult is that like everything is expensive, you know, like, and so, I mean, I actually am about to sell like my snowboard boots, because I was like, okay, I'm going to gear up and get out there on the slopes and enjoy myself. I've been snowboarding a few times, and like every single year, I'm like, this just doesn't seem like a good financial investment. Like for how often I'm going to go, like it does make sense for me to get the Epic Pass, but at the same time, and even just camping. Like I used to think you just get in the car and then you go somewhere and then you camp, and people are like, no, you have to like reserve a spot. And I'm like, now I'm just paying to lay on a ground. Like this doesn't make sense to me. Right. And so, but it is true. Like I feel like when you're out there, like when I've gone camping with friends, I'm like a little chocolate chip on like ice cream cone, right? Like a vanilla ice cream cone. And so you're just kind of like, well, this isn't like Black people don't camp,
Black folks don't do that. Black folks don't fish. Like, what are you talking about?
But it is like, it's tough because yes, it takes someone being like, it's not like I need this in my life, but I also want other people that if they need it, like they feel safe and included and able to do it, and they think about it, right? And like there are plenty of things I think like Black people you just don't think about sometimes, because you're like, yeah, we don't do that. I don't know, like there's no part of me that's like, oh man, I would just die to go for a swim. I know how to swim, but like it's not something I grew up with, like where my parents are like, let's do swimming lessons or whatever, so I do love that's like your thought process behind it, because sometimes it is hard to remind yourself, and this is something I just said to someone, where discussing as like being a Black person, a Black woman, and a woman, I'm like, there are so many things that we have the right to do or not do, but there are so many things we just don't have the privilege of doing or not doing.
Absolutely.
And so,
and I love to explore, and this is a part of that. It's like exploration, and whether that's me traveling to other countries or exploring my backyard, like that's exploration. And so I will get you in that water. I will show you some fun. Sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I was in that pool, or man, I was in that water. That is my challenge now. I got you. We're gonna crave it. You're gonna crave it outdoors.
We're doing it. So like, okay. I'm curious now, what is something that you are really excited about that you're either working on or that you are thinking to the future? Because I don't know if this is something like that I can say, but I'm going to say it. Like, I assume that you're going to run for like mayor at some point. So I don't know if that's a real thing, but like, yeah, like what does your future look like at this moment that you're like, I'm really excited about it, or I want to draw attention to it? Or, I mean, I don't know if you have, but if you want to say that you're definitely running for mayor, like definitely say that here. That's great. Like, yeah, like what, you heard it.
You got it. The first interview.
But yeah, like tell, like, I would love to know, because you're, like I said, you're very busy. You're always working on something. So
I do always have something on my sleeve, don't I? It's what I said earlier. The state and municipal level is really calling me in. And I've done a lot of work at the state level, and I think I've been pretty successful at that. And so now it's about, for me, implementation. Yep. How is that playing out in South Broadway? How is that playing out, in Central Park, in Park Hill, on the North Side? How are we ensuring that there really are opportunities for us all in my own community, in my backyard? Yeah. So taking that wider lens and narrowing it substantially is something that I'm really interested in. And so, yes, those conversations have come up. Yes, I'm exploring them and thinking about them. I will go where I'm called to go by the people, that I represent. Not without working for it, of course. So I'm not, I don't want to just like beat around the bush. I don't have a direct answer for you right now, but I will say that the things that you've brought up and the things that we've talked about are weighing heavy on my heart. I want to make sure that we're providing more opportunities for that person who just needs a hand up, that person who needs help. I want our safety net to do more than temporarily catch people, but really to help build strength, stability, and wealth. Honestly, for all of us. I know Denver is still kind of a baby city, and we're at this point of where we're deciding who we want to be. And I want to make sure that we're going in the direction of a city that's empathetic, a city that, loves one another and takes care of each other, but also that it is a city of opportunity for ourselves and our families, I mean, that's real, right? So yeah, to say I'm not thinking about it would be an untrue statement. I am term limited in my position now. And so I am thinking about it. I'm thinking about, really where we can go as a city and how I can ensure that the Denver I know and love and see when I open my door is the Denver that is a reality for everybody.
Yeah. It's what you were just saying made me think of, I do feel like there's a little bit of a sense of, and I've only been here for 7 years, so I can't really speak, right? But it does kind of feel like sometimes when I look at the demographics, I look at the wealth, like the people who are like, okay, yeah, it costs this much to live there. And I'm like, what do you do for work?
Right.
Like, and it makes me wonder if there are a lot of people who feel as if they are doing all of the work, they've put in all of the time, and then the opportunities or the money or the land or the property or whatever is just being snatched from them by people who kind of just show up here, or by people who have that privilege of like being white men, right? Like and I get the sense of it sometimes where I'm like, I don't even know. I don't know where you can necessarily find it, but I don't know if it's going to happen here, right? Like, and so I've been exploring the idea of moving because I'm like, is this my forever city? Is this where I feel like the most opportunity can be? All those things. But the longer I've been here, the more I do understand the frustration of people who have lived here their whole lives, where it kind of does feel like they're like, my only plan was to buy a house here. And like, that's just further and further and further and further. And so, yeah, like what you just said just really resonated with me because I know that that's a real thing for people.
It is real. It is real. And I think, when I look at my younger days in politics, our goal was to bring more jobs to Colorado, high paying jobs,
Yeah.
I was part of that. And we did that, right? And then with these higher paying jobs became these high rises, and these high rises became affordable only to the single people, who were making over 100K. And then what about people in those communities, right? And then we had the recession, we had the predatory lending and the foreclosure crisis of 2007 that really made people's homes opportunity for investment and predatory development. And yes, that frustration is there. Yes, that frustration is real. Yes, that frustration is warranted. It's not your fault as someone who came to Colorado and saw an opportunity, but it's all of our jobs to fix it, right? To say like I can prosper and you can prosper. Like, I believe that we can all prosper in ways that we see prosperity as, so long as we are not being predators, right? So long as we are not ostracizing or pushing other people out, we can all achieve together. And so that's really what I want to fight for. And it starts with, again, I go back to what I said at the beginning, building those bridges, taking down some of those divisions, taking down some of those, like, well, you're not a Colorado native, you're a transplant, you're the problem. Well, you're a Colorado native and you don't understand. I just came here to work, that's gotta go. And we're all right now Denverites, we're all Coloradans. What do we need as a community to feel connected to our home?
And it's funny that you even said that, because I have learned so fast after I moved here because I'll be like, oh, I recently moved here when I recently moved here. And people were like, oh, of course. And I'm like, I took a quiz and it told me to come here. I didn't come here for any other reason, and it's like, you always felt like you had to like defend it because you're just like, I'm not part of the problem, but I mean, I am, but I'm not, well, and it's interesting because it's like, I have a friend who bought a home in Low-Hi, and then he rented it out. He bought a second home in Low-Hi. He uses it for Airbnb, and he has a studio apartment, and like, part of me is like, I get it. Like, you're creating wealth for your family, and like probably generational wealth. And like, if I had the money, I probably would be doing the same thing too. But then at the same time, it's like, there are also just not enough houses in Lohi for one person to be owning multiple houses. Like, like, especially when we have a housing shortage. And so it's weird because it's like, you're on this fence where you're like, I get it, but also don't do it. But also I get it. I guess maybe I would be doing the same thing, maybe, but also don't do it, like, and it's like, I can't imagine what it's like for you to be in this position where you're like, yes, I get it. Also, this is a problem, but also, like,
we have to put guardrails around it, but no, you're not the devil for seeing an opportunity, but like, let's put some guardrails so everyone can have some of that opportunity as well, Yeah. Like, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we all see it. And I've, great friends who are doing, some like developers, and I try to dig into their plan. I try to understand what's going on. And I'm like, well, you're not the devil. I see what you're doing. And what are you going to do for the people who are there right now?
Yes.
What are you going to do for the people who are pushed out? What are you going to do and it's not even just the people that are pushed out. It's the people who are pushed out whose only dream was that their kids could buy in that neighborhood.
Yes.
And that dream evaporates and has evaporated. So what are you going to do to make it affordable so that person's child, that person who came to Denver, that person who came to, the North Side and said, I am excited for my child to be able to own a home down the street, for us to build our community here, whose dream has been taken from them. What are we going to do to make sure that that dream is once again reachable and a reality? That's what I want to see. I want to see people stop leaving Denver because there are no longer opportunities for that type of mobility, that type of community building. And I know we can get there. Well, the door is not shut. The door is not shut. We have opportunity. And I actually believe wholeheartedly that the majority of Denverites actually want the same thing. They actually want those opportunities.
It really is true. Like it is this weird feeling being in the community where this is a very scary time. Like rents are increasing, housing prices are increasing. As a single woman, I'm kind of like, I mean, I have to have absolute faith, right? That God is here. Because if I don't have faith that God's here, then like I'm super screwed. Because at some point you're like, when am I going to have to just keep moving further, right? But then at the same time, you look at the state of politics on the national level, and you're like, these people aren't showing up for crap, and half of them are like, they're like, Proud Boys, what are you guys doing? And you're like, this is not what we should be doing, guys. Right. And so it's scary because it almost feels like the car is getting really close to the cliff, and some people are like, maybe we should turn the wheel, and some people are like, we should just throw it off the cliff. And you're like, how is there no one that's like, let's just get it back online here? But then I do know in the community, I feel like there are people who are like, we just want to live normal lives and be safe and secure, and like, we're good with you, and I'm good with you too. And like, and so it feels like it's like it's there. It is very much there.
I see it. We just we haven't been galvanized around that shared vision, And so again, it's like what I'm looking at right now is like, okay, there's a kind of a lack of leadership around that. And so it's time for someone to step up and do that, and help to galvanize that and to see that good in people and say, like, we want the same thing. Let's work on a plan together.
Okay. So I'm not going to take all your time because your time is valuable. I feel like I could go on and on with you. But I'm going to ask you my last two questions, as I ask in every podcast. How do you desire to better show up for others?
Oh, wow. I think I desire to better show up for others. I could be more patient. I think that I'm always looking for the solution, the answer, let's go. And I think like that patience, that sitting with our own breath, that just sitting is okay too. And so I desire to better show up for others in that way. And I do also, it's because I am so action oriented. I hope and I desire to better show up for others by being that galvanizing force, being that person who can help folks see their potential and how they can make change too. So that together we can build, the community that we want to see.
I love that. And how do you desire to better show up for yourself?
Yeah, that's the hardest part, right? I think that's, holding myself accountable to taking care of myself is important. I've had a few health scares recently because I have not taken care of myself. And so spending that time to take care of myself and my family is really important to me right now, and not feeling guilty when I can't make something,
Yes.
I can't be at all places at all times. And sometimes I just have to say, no, I need to spend time with myself, my dog, my mom, whatever that looks like, and be okay with that, and not try to pull myself in 3 different directions.
Okay, well, I want this for you, so make sure you do it. Thank you so much for being here. This was quite honestly a very inspiring conversation for me. I'm just very thankful that you said yes. I like when you were like, sure, I was like, oh my goodness, she said yes. That was so easy. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited to keep seeing you in Denver. So thank you.
And thanks for having me.
Yes, yes.